Hey guys, this is John, and I'm playing freddi88 in I believe this is a 5+5 game on chess.com. It's another climbing the rating ladder. My opponent opens with e4. Let's play the French defense, e6. Mixing up my openings. I very seldom play the French defense. I don't like that bad light square bishop, but it's just a personal preference. This opening's obviously completely fine. Third most popular opening after e4, behind the Sicilian and e5. All right, so in my experience, most players, especially at this level, play the capture on d5 or e5, but Freddy actually plays knight c3, so keeping the tension. Now, knight f6 and bishop b4 are the main moves here. Which do I want to play? I think I'm going to play knight f6. Yeah, I know when I used to play knight c3 on move 3, developing and defending the pawn on e4, by the way, bishop e4 was the move that always gave me the most trouble, the win-aware variation, but knight f6, the classical, is the traditional way to play this. So trying to force some sort of resolution of the pawn tension in the center. So now it is correct for white to play e5. Okay, white decides to keep the tension a little bit. Bishop d3, interesting. I'm out of book now. Yeah, I think there's a couple ways that black can potentially play here. Looking at bishop b4 once again. Maybe c5. Taking certainly an option. Take, knight takes. I just don't know that I like that option because I can't grab d4 due to bishop b5 check. Could play something like bishop e7 thereafter. I think I'm just going to play bishop e7 right now, actually. Bide my time. See how white continues. But yeah, white could think about e5, knight d7, and maybe queen g4 is interesting, looking to attack this pawn on g7. Definitely going to look this up in the opening explorer afterwards, this bishop d3 move. So yeah, I'm already somewhat impressed by how white has developed here. I like what, at least their originality, because as I've said, people generally at this level are in a hurry to release that tension. And it's something I've talked about at length in my climbing the rating ladder videos. I feel keeping the tension can be a pretty valuable weapon in your chess arsenal. Okay, so knight e2. Yeah, so I might just castle now because if e5 I can play knight d7. There's no possibility of a Greek gift sacrifice because this knight is not within striking distance of g5. So I'm going to go ahead and castle here. Now if white castles, then maybe I'll play takes and knight bd7. Might be time to do that. I could play knight bd7 right here, although after e5 it's kind of a bummer that I can't use this square for the other knight. C5 I mentioned. C5 is probably also not a bad option, although I don't know about possible capture scenarios. So yeah, I think I'm just going to take and play knight bd7. Try to go b6, bishop b7 thereafter. Yeah, if I take, white gets to centralize their bishop. I think this is a nice way of continuing. Get my bishop to b7 and eventually try to play c5. So I think if I were white, I probably would not have put the knight on e2. I think f3, slightly more active square for it, because if the knight was on f3, I might not have been able to do this for fear of that Greek gift sacrifice. But okay, so Freddy plays c4, and let's just play b6. Now in playing b6, I do weaken this diagonal, but I don't see a way white can take advantage of that immediately. There's no possibility of the queen coming to f3 quickly. If white takes, I'll take back with my knight and cover e4, so bishop e4 isn't going to be an issue. All right, let's just continue. So white has a slight central space advantage right now. I may be looking to play c5 later to try to fight back against that space advantage. See what happens. If c5, I do have to reckon with d5. White may look to push past. Definitely don't like playing c5 prior to getting my bishop out to b7. I feel like this is a way to coordinate for me. Okay, d5. So I don't like that move. For one thing, it may lose a pawn for white, because notice I have 1, 2, 3 attackers on that square, and white only has 2 defenders. And I don't see a bishop discovery that may allow white to play queen takes d5 at the end of the line. Yeah, so I'm going to take. And the other reason I don't like this, even if somehow that pawn were protected, it becomes isolated. I think having that pawn duo side by side, so controlling e5, d5, c5, and even b5 was nicer. I don't think white had to be in a hurry to advance there. Also, if white plays knight takes f6, I can take back, and then my queen is even involved in the defense of d5. So Yeah, it appears white's going to be going down a pawn at this juncture. Knight takes d5. Okay. Now I'm just double checking after a double capture on d5 if white has any sort of tricks there. I don't think so, but I'm leaving my king side a little bare. But I don't think there's a way for white to punish me. On pawn takes, I could even think about knight e5, although it looks a little unnecessary. I think bishop takes d5, much more straightforward. Yeah, there's nowhere that the knight can really jump that's going to hurt me too much. So let's go ahead and take this. But because this is an undefended square that I'm capturing the pawn on, and my bishop doesn't have support, I have to be looking for tactics. Oh, don't pre-move that, John. I almost did it again. Okay, queen h5 is one move I should mention, and right on cue he plays it. f5 is possible here to stop the queen from attacking the bishop. That would have been potentially bad if I had pre-moved to bishop e6, because then I'd have to reckon with discoveries. I mean, bishop e6 actually may be playable for me. And I can also take here and then play knight f6 and fork the queen and the bishop. That's probably the best way to treat this position. Because for the record, white's threatening queen takes d5, and they're also eyeing up this h7 point with knight discoveries. So yeah, I feel like bishop takes e4, bishop takes e4, knight f6 is just a nice operation for me. White's going to have to move their attack queen. I take on e4. We're going to get a position where white's taking on e4 with the queen, and I'm going to be up a pawn. So yeah, this is a nice simplifying line. I could have explored f5 a little bit deeper, but f5 was a slightly weakening move at the same time, so I'm pretty satisfied with this move. Just bank that extra pawn, get to trade 2 sets of minor pieces. Guarding h7 in the process. So nice multi-purpose move. We like those multi-purpose moves, right? Attack and defense. So queen back to f3, let's take. And now next, white's underdeveloped. White wants to get this bishop in the game. I'm thinking about playing bishop f6 to eye up that b2 pawn, make it harder for white to coordinate. I think I like the look of that. Just give white a minor problem in completing that development. Also, rook e8 is enabled, attacking the queen. Okay, so good move there. I like that. Queen c2. Yeah, maybe prepping for the bishop to come out. I think I'm going to play c5 here. Just get this pawn up. I have a majority, 3 versus 2 on the queen side. So long term, I would like to make a pass pawn on that wing. And now if I was in Freddy's shoes here, I would try my best to keep pieces on board. You don't want to trade too much here if you're white. Try to create some sort of threats. It's going to be tough because black's very solid in this position, no doubt. But try to create some sort of threats and fight back. I'm going to play rook e8, just take the file. I'm expecting white to put a rook on d1. I'm first just going to try to get my queen off the back rank. I'm thinking about queen e7 here. Looks pretty decent. Let's do that. Maybe a prelude to queen e4 if I want to attack the queen on c2 and the bishop on f4. Note that white can't play rook e1 with either rook, so I'm going to take. And that's going to lead to back rank checkmate if white recaptures. So I'm kind of focusing on the e file for the time being. White's focused on the d file. All right, so h3, good move. My moves here, I'm considering queen e4, also maybe rook a d8 if I want to get that rook involved. I like the look of queen e4 because it's a tempo gaining move. Trades should favor me. I think I'm going to play that. I've got this other rook defending the back rank, so if there's a trade, I'm not running into problems. Even the bishop is also contributing to the defense of d8. Tough spot for white because I think they'd like to keep queens on the board, but queen d2 or queen c1 may have had some issues with, say, the b2 pawn. White's queen could have been overloaded, so white does take, and now I'm on the bishop. I'd probably play bishop c1 if I were white here. It's not a move you're thrilled to play, but looks like the only way to defend the bishop and also defend b2. So I think it's basically forced. At least if white plays bishop c1, they've already moved the rook from a1. Okay, so this drops the bishop on f4. White took their eye off the attack on the bishop there. Okay, and white puts the rook on e1. So now this is going to be largely a mop-up job for me. Not a bad move to play a move like g6 or h6 in these type of positions. I kind of like putting something on d4, though. I'm thinking about rook d4 or bishop d4. I think both are good. Kind of leaning towards rook. Let's go with the rook, just to block some future white play. Again, very happy with the trade. I think white should play rook d to e2 here, threatening checkmate. But now I'm going to play this g6 move. This move is your friend if ever there's the possibility of a back rank checkmate, which there very often is, even if it's less obvious and less direct than in a position like this. Still a good move to play if you get the chance. Yeah, and white just resigned. Wasn't going to test my technique there. Okay, so thanks to freddi88 for the game. So d5, if I were to cite one move that got white in trouble in this game, I think it was d5 here on move 10. Up until this point, white played a very reasonable game. Good development, good use of tension, not being in a hurry to take or push e5, even though those moves weren't strictly mistakes. That shows me that they understand that they don't always have to clarify the tension. But yeah, d5, that looks like a miscounting of attackers and defenders. So 3 attackers on d5, only 2 defenders. And I like the spirit of queen h5, but the execution of it seems a little off. I mean, yeah, the fact that I can take and then play knight f6, just diffuse everything. White has to move their queen multiple times. I'm up the pawn here. White even has a couple remaining development issues. So I think, therefore, it might have been better to play a move like knight c3 at this point, hit the bishop. Maybe a dark square bishop move like bishop f4. But I would be looking to trade from here if I could and further complete my development. Rook over to e8 at some point soon. Knight jumping to f6 or c5. One of these 2 squares. So yeah, d5. Always got to watch those attackers and defenders. Yeah, and then a little bit later, I think these moves are pretty reasonable for white. Maybe it's a bit better to play g3 instead of h3, although it's a pretty close call. But definitely after the trade of the queens, white must play bishop c1 here. And multi-purpose move. Defend the pawn and also defend the bishop. Keep that bishop secure. And it's still going to require some technique to win this for black. I was thinking about rook e2 to maybe go after this pawn. But rook e2, perhaps white can play rook e1. Even though white would prefer to keep material on board, I think they probably have to work to try to neutralize that rook. And maybe I come here, let's say. And if there's a trade, fortunately, I'm not running into rook d8 because of the bishop. I'm still trying to keep the threat here. But again, work to be done. Maybe also white could play king f1 here. You hate to trade both pairs of rooks, I think. And this starts to feel like technically lost territory for white. But sometimes these same color bishop endings down a pawn can be draws. I would try to play f5, centralize my king, and gradually use my majority on this wing. But white's still holding on here. Let's just click over to the analysis board real quick. See what the engine thinks. So yeah, this knight c3 move. Also a move that you've seen me play from the white side. For instance, I had a climbing the rating ladder game from the white side against a player, Jalapeno7, I believe was their username, several weeks ago. I played knight d2, the Tarash there. That's another tension-keeping idea. And again, there's nothing wrong with, say, e5, the advanced variation. E takes d5, I'm a little less certain about as far as getting an advantage for white, the exchange variation, because that tends to open the light square bishop. But there's nothing too wrong with those, but I at least want you guys to think about being able to develop and also defend at the same time. It's the same principle in the Caro-Kann, e4, c6, d4, d5. You don't have to take or push. You can play this move as well. It's one of the main lines. So I played knight f6, bishop b4 is also another line, the win-aware variation. This tends to be a sharper move for black. So knight f6, and I'm used to seeing the line e5, knight f d7, f4, c5, knight f3, knight c6, black developing, trying to exert pressure here. And there's quite a bit of theory from this position. If I click on the Explorer, you'll see thousands and thousands of games from this position. White establishing a nice pawn center, but black getting some leverage against white's center, as happens in the French, but black long-term needing to solve this issue of the light square bishop. That being said, though, let's take a look at what freddi88 did with bishop d3, because as I said, I was out of book here. Still, decent amount of games, 200 or so games played from this position. But Okay, looks like c5 is the main move for black. c5. I played bishop e7, played in 13 games. Some decent winning percentages for white in this, though. c5, creating even further tension in the center. There's a line that goes e takes d5, e takes or knight takes. Yeah, I was a little hesitant to allow something like this, where black ends up with an IQP, an isolated queen's pawn, but yeah, maybe this is one decent way to go. D takes e4 also played. That would be kind of similar to the game, I suppose. So bishop e7, knight e2. Okay, and now according to the opening explorer, this move is a novelty, or a new move. So leading to a new position. Knight e2. Yeah, I like knight f3 better, definitely, as played in 95 games, because a big difference is if I castle here, e5, knight here, I think I have to consider the option of white sacrificing on h7 a little bit more closely. Although in this case, it won't work quite yet. Even something like h4 looks kind of interesting here, trying to prep. Bishop takes h7, king takes h7, knight g5 with that knight defended multiple times. I don't know. This could get sharp. So yeah, knight e2 looks a bit better. What about, let me click on the engine. What about e5, knight fd7, queen g4? That is actually the top line of Stockfish here. Queen g4. Yeah, maybe this is an issue with the way I developed. Attacking this pawn. This sometimes happens in the French, that white can throw in queen g4, especially after this bishop is moved. This especially happens in the Winnower variation. So white may play queen g4, attacking this pawn. Because if black castles, that runs into bishop h6. And this pawn on g7 is hit twice. Black can't defend it safely. And g6 is, at minimum, just going to lose the exchange. Bishop takes f8. So I would have had to play g6 or king f8 here. And I probably would have played g6 and looked to strike back at that white center, c5, knight c6. Much sharper game, though. And the computer seems to like white. +1, dropping a little bit. But yeah, bishop h6 looks like it makes sense, stopping me from castling. This could lead to very interesting positions. I will say, even though the computer gives white a healthy advantage here, these positions are unbalanced. I mean, I tend to think black has decent counterplay against this center, especially when there's a knight sitting on c3. It'd be better in this instance for white to have a pawn there to really support that construction. Okay, so that was another way the game could go. So my opponent played knight e2. I castled. Yeah, and then took. Again, c5 is another potential move, but I think taking and playing knight bd7, just getting ready to replace this knight if white ever takes. Oh, and now we've transposed back into some games here. Okay. So via a different move order, apparently, this position has been reached before. Okay, c4. Yeah, c4 takes the center, although I can see why maybe it'd be better for white to set up with c3. Because the downside of c4 is that c-pawn can't be used to defend d4 in the future. The engine wants me to actually strike at white center immediately with c5, but yeah, b6 looks decent here. But other moves that come to mind, definitely c3, bishop f4 as well, I would say. Also possible. So b6, yeah, knight here. Sometimes in these sort of setups as white, you can try to play bishop c2 and get your queen to d3 to lurk and try to attack h7 in the future, although I don't know if it works timing-wise for white. You know, if this, here, I'm immediately attacking that knight twice. If there's a trade like this, queen d3, I can always play bishop e4 if I want. Also, h7 is defended, so computer just wants me to play this. So still a roughly even game right around here. Bishop b7, but as I was saying, that d5 move. So attackers and defenders, counting, as Dan Heisman loves to call it. Take. Yeah, we get a double trade here. White inserting a capture on f6 doesn't change much. And let's see what the best way for white to try to keep some pieces on board here is. Engine likes knight c3 or bishop f4 or rook e1. Yep. Yeah, say white played rook e1. I wouldn't really want to be in a hurry to take on e4. I don't want to trade so much here up a pawn that I'm willing to part with a good bishop like that. Knight c5 maybe. But yeah, this looks like a more useful move. The rook on the same file as the bishop on e7 in the long run. Again, I like the spirit of queen h5, but it just allowed this pretty straightforward simplification option where 2 sets of minor pieces come off the board, and black's a lot better here. Yep, c5, and as I said, long term, looking to push these pawns, probably once I'm coordinated, maybe even after having played a move like g6 or h6 later, just to make sure there's no back rank issue. And for white, got to try to keep those pieces on board, but it's tough. Okay, rook e8. Oh yeah, I should have looked at queen d4 here. I don't know why I didn't consider that move. Attacking the bishop, also hitting b2 twice. Yeah, that just looks better than what I did. As if white has to play bishop c1 to defend. This is the situation I was referring to that's not great for white with the rook buried on the a1 square. I could play something like this and make it hard for white to play rook d1 and chase the queen away. So queen d4, that's definitely an improvement in my play. I played rook e8, rook d1, queen here. Yeah, queen e4. And if white tries to keep the queens on the board, and that's an interesting option too. White can't play queen c1 because I do have bishop takes b2, deflecting the queen and going up 2 pawns. But queen d2, I wonder about. Although I guess I have rook d8 if I really want here too. Yeah, one of the rooks to d8. Notice I've got this defended sufficiently. Defended twice. It's attacked twice, but I'm fine. And white would be giving up a higher value piece, queen takes rook, if they wanted to take, so that's not a good option. Yes, this is just not looking good for white. I might be able to play bishop takes b2 here still, because the queen is still overloaded, although I'd have to check after rook fe1 whether I'm still coming away with the pawn. Looks like I am. So queen e4, take. Yep, and I think bishop c1 is going to be the way to mitigate the damage here, although it's still definitely a uphill battle. Rook e2, and significant advantage for black here, getting into almost +2 territory. Yep, and white lost the piece, so always got to pay attention to those undefended pieces. All right, so thanks to freddi88 for the game once again. Yep, just got to watch those D5 type of decisions. Always count your attackers and defenders. It's worth taking time if there's multiple attackers and defenders. It's worth taking the time to make sure you have done the counting correctly. Hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I'll be back again soon with another one. Bye, guys.